Braxcast time once again, guys, and this is the 40th episode of the Braxcast. It's also a really exciting one since the Horseman rides. We are getting fulfillment for Horseman. They have started that. I've got my books, so we're going to dive into the juicy goodness that is the Horseman. But before we do that, I want to talk about another pretty cool announcement that came over the course of this week, and it is the Rippaverse 2025 calendar. Of course, it's mid-November, so we're heading into the holiday season, and this is when calendars are ripe to sell. So Rippaverse is getting in on the calendar game with a 2025 calendar featuring a whole bunch of fantastic artists who've worked on the Rippaverse. Ronaldson Ferrari, cover artist. Kanan White, of course, lead art editor. Jay Brown, colorist. Some other choice names as well. Looks like it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Pretty reasonably priced. I believe it's like 15-20 bucks to get a 2025 calendar for the Rippaverse. And from this little asset here, it looks like it's very well made. A pretty standard calendar. Of course, like I said, that art absolutely fantastic. And of course, highlighting the month of October with Blood Roof. Very good choice for having the horror character be in October, and also highlighting that because her campaign is ongoing. And Blood Roof #1 has just crossed $500,000, 9,000 books sold, which is fantastic. Horseman ended at $800,000, I believe 14,000 books sold. So Rippaverse keeps on trucking. Absolutely fantastic to see. And of course, it's fantastic to see a 2025 calendar for the Rippaverse. And I did talk when I interviewed Andrew Rodriguez, hopefully getting his name right, for the second time. We had talked about this calendar because there was a question of the day, which they haven't done questions of the day in a while. They should bring those back. Talked about what would you like to see in a Rippaverse calendar, and I gave what I said, and he said he couldn't say anything NDA, right? And this is why it was NDA, was they were doing a calendar, heroes, villains, and epic moments. Looks really, really cool so far, and hopefully it's just as cool when it starts shipping. I believe it'll be later next month, so about mid-December, early January is when you'll get these in your hands if you decide to order those books. But we're going to move on to the Horseman. So I am going to be reviewing the Horseman, so there will be a review out this weekend. It'll probably come out basically right after Braxcast. So open up my Horseman review in a new tab if you want to go into spoilers a little bit, if you want to go into that. Of course, if you just want a basic overview of the Horseman, whether or not I think it's a good book, and a little bit more detail with no spoilers, there'll be a written review on the Substack. But basically, this is a fantastic book. There was a lot of goodwill that Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett got with me, and a lot of the fans with how good Alpha Core 1 was. It made $1.3 million. People really liked it at the time and still like it, and this is just as good. It's a fantastic book. It really holds to the pacing, being paced well. That's where I think Chuck Dixon really shines, making these fast-paced, action-packed stories. And then, of course, Joe Bennett really brings them to life with his fantastic pencil work and all of these fantastic spreads that he does. And they are definitely no shortage of them in this book. It's got plenty of spreads. So if you loved Alpha Core, you're going to love this book. And if you're interested in getting into the Rippaverse, then I would recommend picking up this book and picking up Alpha Core as well. So it is a fantastic book. It is absolutely awesome to see a new character that's not from the mind of Eric July. It's coming from Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett, who collaborate on this book, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park on this one. And I believe that's what the fans are going to keep saying as they go, as they keep on with fulfillment, and the fans get their books in their hands. I imagine most people are going to be very satisfied with it because it's just a stellar comic book. But they get the I Want It All package. So this is the Horseman hat. Of course, this is the large/extra large. It's a little bit tight on my head, but I got a rather big cranium. Of course, you got that Horseman text on the back, so if you wear it backwards, it'll still look cool. But this is a really nice hat, high quality material. Definitely want to show it off just a little bit. That is a nice book. But the biggest thing I'm going to show off here to all of you guys is the signed and graded. So the signature series. So I've got all 4 of these. So this is cover A. Of course, these are all signed by Chuck Dixon. If you can see that signature there, might be a little bit hard to see. If I can zoom out a little bit. So this is cover A, of course, made by Cannon White, or I should say, drawn by Cannon White. That was the A cover for that. Get all that out of the way. Trying to get everything into frame here, but we're moving on to cover B. So cover B is done by the very talented Ronaldson. I can't say his last name, but Ronaldson Ferrer, if I'm saying that correctly, did the fantastic cover B, and he's also an artist appearing on the Rippaverse 2025 calendar as well. So very nice to see just this really nice cast of artists that Rippaverse is building up, and they're making very consistent appearances. In terms of being cover artists, of course, doing interior art, this is Joe Bennett's second book, Horseman. Of course, was his first, and of course, the third is going to be probably Zaylin, What Kills Must Die. That's the third one we know about, and of course, we know that Alpha Core 2 is in the works, and there's another Horseman book in the work as well. So it seems like Joe Bennett is going to be doing a lot more pages for the Rippaverse, and I absolutely love that because he's just such a talented artist. And now we're getting into the C cover. So this one is done by Will Conrad, who drew the Dokuman cards. We have those first 2 decks. That third deck is coming with the Blood Roof collection, so very excited for that. Will Conrad's a fantastic artist, and this is the foil embossed cover, so to have him do the art for this one is absolutely fantastic, and this is a really, really action-packed piece of art, and of course, it's really hard to see it on video, but just the way it shines, the machine gun, all of that, it just looks absolutely fantastic, and of course, it's always nice to see that signature from Chuck Dixon there. And these are all 9.8s. It seems like that they love to send me 9.8s, and I don't complain about that. But most of my signature series are 9.8s. I believe I have one 9.9 from the ISOM 1 collection. But this is, of course, cover D, which is my reading copy. I had made the call to make that the reading copy, but this is my signed and graded version of cover D. Of course, the art from cover D is done by Joe Bennett, who is the interior artist, and it's basically like this movie poster splash page made with a very retro style, having, of course, the character box there, approved by the Rippaverse Code of Ethics, marked for death, but by who should be by whom. But that's just me being a little bit of a grammar Nazi. Kill or be killed, and time is running out. And then, of course, the first appearance of the Horseman, Tuna, Blitz, and Sturm. Tuna was the big gangster who had the most lines in the Horseman trailer. Blitz and Sturm are those 2 who have the final laughs, like, let us loose, Tuna, let us do what we do. This does definitely come from the comic book, so that trailer was a true trailer for the comic book, because it does feature some scenes from the comic book and weaves them in a way that's really, really interesting, in my opinion, looking back, having read the entire book. But I don't want to get too much into the weeds on this book and talk about what the spoilers are, the deep spoilers of this book. But as, someone who does, the Braxcast, this Rippaverse podcast, and one of the things that really pushed me into loving the Rippaverse so much to do this Braxcast and buy, all the books and invest so much into it, is this idea of it being a comic book universe. Every single one of my reviews, and including the Horseman review, mentions the fact that it is a comic book universe, and that's really the most intriguing aspect of this. And I think I'll bring my copy of the book right here, and I absolutely have to say that the Horseman really capitalizes on this. Chuck Dixon really comes off as someone who loves playing in the sandbox. He loves being creative, and Eric July just lets him loose, says, hey, as long as you're writing scripts that are actually conducive to what I had intended with the characters and for the universe, and he seems to be on the same page with him, can do whatever he wants, and what he wants to do is just make these really interesting stories that exist in the backdrop of the Rippaverse. I say Horseman does it really well, especially given the fact that he wrote Alpha Core, and that was his introduction into writing for the Rippaverse. He uses a lot of those, I would say, same toys in the sandbox here, and he does that very fantastically. So it's going to be really interesting to see where the Horseman goes next, especially considering how this book ends. It definitely needs, like, if he's going to keep being a part of the Rippaverse, there's going to need to be something that happens that really pushes him back into the fold. But of course, it's getting a little bit into spoiler territory, and I don't really want to get into that, but it's a very interesting story. There's a lot of places that this character can be taken. And of course, he's just this brutal character that has a very strong moral code, but he does not care for the criminal underclass. But the reasons why he does his things is for his family, of course, his sister and his nephew. That's a big driver of why he does what he does. It's a very interesting thing to see, and it's a very good dynamic that he has with, being this guy that brutally kills people, but also wants to be, or also is in the role of being a family man, right? And it's more, that's really what I have to say is the main dynamic that goes on there. And there's, lots of opportunity for world building and character building as this story gets more, developed as this goes on into more issues. And I believe that Horseman is getting more stories attached to it. So Chuck Dixon has an idea of where to take this character. I'm absolutely interested to see it. And of course, I'm interested to see stuff like Zaylin and Alpha Core #2 because Chuck Dixon is such a fantastic writer, and Eric July gave him such a great sandbox to play around him. Not only that, he also gave him the freedom to do what he wants in that sandbox as well. And that's really the fantastic thing. And that's really where he gets into with this first this basically little essay. And this is like an essay, or I would say a letter to the reader from the writer. Basically, every Rippaverse book has had this. It used to come up at the end, but now it comes at the beginning, which I think is a pretty good place to do it. It comes, right after the, Rippaverse epic, and I always love how you have a drawing of the character that's featured in the book. I think that's absolutely cool. It just really helps draw you into the reading experience. And of course, this essay, I think it really gets into like why Chuck Dixon, likes to write and why he's writing for the Rippaverse and why he enjoys having this ongoing relationship with Eric July and all the other great folks at the Rippaverse. But that's really all I can say without getting into like a complete spoiler territory. And this book is just like, we're just coming off of the first week of fulfillment when I'm recording this. So I don't want to get into like every single plot point and break it down page by page. Of course, I like to keep these under an hour, so I haven't done too many breakdowns of individual books. I definitely want to do that in the future, and it seems like we're going to be going a bit slower since the release schedule for this year seems to be ending mostly, although there's probably going to be one or two more big surprises coming up in the month of December, but I don't imagine we're going to see like a big item free drop or something like that. I could be wrong, but for now, that's all I've got for this episode of the Braxcast. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Joker is out. Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.